Prince Street is brought to you by Dean and DeLuca, purveyors of the finest food since 1977. With over 40 stores around the world, Dean and DeLuca curates the best ingredients for life. Popcorn at the movies. Junk food on a road trip. Sweet, ripe peaches at the peak of summer. Feta and olives through the course of a pregnancy. Driving halfway across town for that perfect scoop of ice cream. And don't even get me started on noodles. My cravings are unstoppable. And you? I crave knowing yours, too. Welcome to Prince Street.
Hi, I'm Howie Kahn. This month on Prince Street, we're talking about craving. We've got Dominique Ansel, the father of the cronut, and Iron Chef and Chopped star Alex Guarnaschelli. Plus, Mario Batali reminisces with Jay McInerney about their friend, the late, great novelist Jim Harrison, who was a great craver himself of wine, nature, and especially food.
You know, you're going to die and you want the fullness of life. Only a fool wouldn't care what he was eating, you know. This is something you do every day. Why not do it well? Good food just simply tastes good, as opposed to bad food, which doesn't taste good at all.
More from Jim Harrison, Eden Grinchman, and other stories. But first, we're going to hear from our correspondent and founder of Deli, Noah Bernamoff, about trading places. Don't go away.
I had another gentleman who hired me for cronuts, but this is the weird part. 2 cronuts, you get max. He said, split the cronuts, 1 in each box, 1 to a girlfriend uptown and 1 to a girlfriend downtown.
That's Robert Samuel. He's the creator of Same Old Line Dudes, LLC, which, yes, is a professional line-sitting business. This man has a registered company with the state of New York whose sole source of income is sitting in line for other people. I'm Noah Bernamoff, your local finger-wagging, head-shaking, curmudgeon correspondent. Okay, I own a couple restaurants in New York, Mile and Deli, Grand Army, and Black Seed Bagels, and for better or worse, we are no stranger to the line. I don't actually frown upon line waiting. Our loyal customers help fund our business, so please wait in our line. I would just never wait in line for food myself. My question is, why do people do it? Why do they line up rather than, say, finding another place to eat around the block, calling ahead and picking up, or even better, ordering delivery? We're talking about craving this month, and I want to talk about one particular result of mass craving: waiting in line.
Is anybody's first visit today? Ooh, welcome. I'm from Iowa, and I'm here because I've heard a ton about it, and I've had friends say, you have to go and get them, and I wanted to know what all the hype was about.
People wait for the ramen burger, Pokeworks, Sushi-ritos, Black Tap milkshakes. But when you're talking about food cravings and lines, you have to talk about the OG master, Chef Dominique Ansel, and the cronut. For any of you who somehow haven't heard of it, the cronut, a registered word, is a croissant donut hybrid created by Chef Dominique for his Soho bakery in May of 2013. When it launched, it created a summer of cronut mania that made headlines and late-night talk show appearances. Almost 3 years later, at 7:30 a.m. on a Friday, there was a line of people waiting for the cronut. Sure, it's shorter than it once was, but people are definitely still lining up.
Good morning, my name is Charles. I'm from Washington, D.C. I'm actually not a donut fan, but I'm a croissant fan, so we'll see what happens.
I'm from Amarillo, Texas. Basically why we're here is we like keeping up with Kardashians. One of the episodes,
they get it. The cronuts, and it took them 2.5 hours, so we figured it had to be worth the while.
Yeah.
Everyone had a donut. Everyone had a croissant.
That's Chef Dominique himself.
Everyone can imagine both together. And I think this excitement of wanting to try, of wanting to feel it when they eat it, and to have this kind of emotions that goes through them.
You've recently opened a patisserie in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going?
It's amazing. Actually, the last few days, the line outside has been the longest since we opened about 8 months ago.
Have you ever gone outside and been like, I really enjoy the cronut, but I would never in a million years spend my morning like this? Have you ever thought that to yourself?
I thought of it, and I think it will wait in my line. I want to make sure that when people come, line up, I want to make sure that they have the experience I would want to have myself. Being welcome, being served little samples of drinks early in the morning when it's cold outside. Mm-hmm. We bake fresh madeleines every single morning for everyone in line. We have hand warmers for the winter. We have blankets in case it snows. I want to make sure that they feel welcome. They feel welcome to my house. We are, and I say we, it's me and the team. We are excited every single day to see people. And the most exciting for me is when they bite into the food, when really like you can feel it for them.
Yeah.
And when they look at you and with a big smile, there's no need for words.
I'm just so impressed that you folks brought chairs.
Just last week I was at Pokeworks. Oh my God, that line was also insane. So I gave up.
The craziest food thing I did here was Francois Payard Bakery holds Macaroon Day. A couple of years ago, I woke up at 6 a.m. and I tried to hit as many as I could. Probably like a 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. journey of just driving from bakery to bakery to bakery. I think we walked away with 54 macaroons.
Did you eat all of them?
No, obviously not.
Do you have a tummy ache after?
Not really, no. Yeah. it was just to say that I did it.
Do you think that's why people wait in line sometimes, just to say they did it?
I think that's part of it. And just gotta follow the trend. There's just gonna be a line.
They do some work to cultivate an image of exclusivity because they only let 2 per person. And they only make a limited amount, so.
I'm just not sure what exclusivity's part is in all of this. When is it intentional? Back when we opened Mile End in Brooklyn, we ran out of smoked meat within 2 hours of serving. That happened the day we opened, and literally every single day for the first 8 months. And I actually felt bad for the people waiting. Enough so that at a meeting, someone raised their hand and said, "Why don't we activate a Twitter account?" And this was in 2010, before Twitter was even a thing. A Twitter account solely to pronounce our meat availability. In other words, a meat Twitter. Think about that. And then I solved my supply issues, and poof, no more line. Remember same old line dude Robert? I asked him about it. What do you think of this idea of food? Food, it's food, It's like we just eat it, and 5 minutes later, yeah, 5 minutes later it's gone. Exactly. It's awesome that you've carved out a niche for yourself in this world. Mm-hmm. But what do you think of the idea of businesses engaging their customers in a way that forces the exclusivity?
He said himself, Dominique Ansel said, here's a small bakery. He can only concentrate on cronuts for so much of the day because they have other things to do with. But when you talk about, food, people waiting in line for food, I don't judge anybody's passion. I don't smoke, I don't drink beer, but hey, if that's what you want to stand in line for, then do you. Everybody likes what they like.
You are recording? Okay, cool. So here I am, in line, 7:30 in the morning, Dominique Ansel Bakery on Spring Street. Feeling pretty good about this. I'm feeling like I have no idea what I'm doing here. I am going against everything that I believe in, which is accessibility of food. And also for me personally, I just don't like waiting for things. All right, well, I'm still here. It's been about 15 minutes, I'd say, maybe 20 minutes. I think what happens is at 8 o'clock, they release the line, and you go 20 by 20 into the shop. I think everyone's feeling good, though. I could see everyone's looking forward. I think that's a good sign. Most people are not looking around them, hoping for signs from the heavens that their cronuts on their way. And here we are. We're actually in the first group going in. I'm feeling really psyched. I'm starting to sweat a little bit. My hands are getting clammy. Whoa! Okay, we're inside. It's beautiful in here. this feels good. It feels good to have waited in line. I feel like I'm winning. I don't usually win. I usually come in like 4th place, you know? Like not bad, but not on the podium. Just shy of the podium. That's my comfort zone. I don't feel like that was bad at all. I think this is good. This is opening my mind up, because up until this point I was really anti-line waiting. But this is the length of time I have to wait for a cronut. I might just come for a cronut every morning. I don't know, maybe this is my new routine. Maybe this is my new routine. This is pretty cool. I'm about to order. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to order 2 cronuts. I also love a black coffee.
What I really remember about Somalia is the beach. We'd go there every Sunday. We'd go to my grandpa's house in the country.
That's Hawa Hassan.
We lived in the city, my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. My parents were always off on an adventure. My parents would be in Egypt visiting my auntie Hawa, or they'd be in India because my uncle was an ambassador. And so they were everywhere. So I thought that was normal life, you know. I felt like I had a normal childhood in the beginning. And then the night that we left Somalia, when tribal fighting broke out, we left. We were some of the very first people to leave Mogadishu, and we drove to Kenya. And my brother and I thought, oh, just another adventure, you know. We'll be going back home soon, and nothing's been the same since.
She's 30 years old now, lives in Brooklyn, and is launching her first business, producing a spicy sauce popular in her native Somalia. It's called Bes Bes. Hawa's story includes time in a Kenyan refugee camp as a 4-year-old, being separated from her family at 7, and eventually working as a model in her teens and 20s. The sauce she's making is based on a craving, not only for flavor, but for the country and the family she left behind.
We drove to Nairobi, and then in our culture, you can have more than one wife as long as you can provide for both, is my understanding. And my dad had just started seeing someone, and she was pregnant, so he brought her along, and my mom wasn't too happy about that. My mom said, okay, I'm taking my children, I'm going to the refugee camp. And that's how it started, how it ended and started.
When you were in that refugee camp, it became your responsibility as the oldest girl, right, to help your mom cook for the family.
One of the things I remember vividly was always making pasta. It was easy to make, so my mom would have me boiling water and making pasta outside of our hut. I made a lot of pasta, I made a lot of rice, and in all my time as a kid growing up in Mogadishu, we never lived in a hut, like in a clay type home, and so there was a lot of sweeping. I remember that. There was, till now, I still really love to sweep. It's so interesting. I love to clean, and I think that started there. And before then, I was just a normal kid who ran around my mom's kitchen doing nothing. And then all of a sudden, overnight, you're a team player, and you have to pull your weight, and you have to watch your little sisters. And, you know, my brother became the man of the house, and bless his heart, he was like 7.
Hawa's mother then heard about a group who was moving to America, sponsored by a synagogue in Seattle.
There was a girl that was supposed to go, and last minute her family decided against it. And my mom, being the hustler and the mover and the shaker she is, thought, you know, if Hawa goes, then I'll have one less child, and I'll be able to get sponsorship quite easy for the 3 that I have here. So she sent me.
Did you understand what was going on? Did you understand that you were leaving your family?
Thought another adventure.
Really?
Promise you.
Hawa was sent to live in an apartment with 5 other Somalis. She helped out by cooking and cleaning up. She was 7 years old.
I would make baris, which is rice, with like raisins and cinnamon cloves. And I would make sugo, which is like sauce. And hilip, which is meat. So I would, you know, the basics, what I was doing back home. More than that, like I was cleaning up behind 4 or 5 adults at a time. I thought all of this was just honoring my mom. I was like, if my mom were here, this is what she would want.
Hawa thought her mother was coming for her, But after that year passed, she realized she was in Seattle on her own. Hawa then decided to part with her Somali roots to become more American.
Well, I was eating a lot of pork hot links from the Shell station, the Shell gas station on the corner. I'm probably going to get my Somali card taken away for saying this.
You get to keep your Somali card.
Okay. I just had never had anything like that. At first, I thought it was odd. Then I'd buy like a loaf of bread, and then every day I'd go get one. You know those that just like turn on that thing?
Yeah.
Like when you're at
They
7-Eleven?
rotate,
Yeah.
They kind of sweat.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
I was like, no one is watching.
They look like they're on vacation.
Exactly.
Just roasting.
They're roasting.
Yeah. During this time, Hawa and her mother lost touch. A mistake made by her guardian led to a breakdown in communication.
The gentleman that was raising me at the time, he was basically a father, grandfather, elder in our community, but he was my American father. He and my mom would always fight about, what to do with me. And one of the options was to send me to my mom's brother in Canada. He lived in Toronto. And he did the right thing. He took me to the border in Canada to hand me over, but he forgot my green card at home. And so we had to turn around and go back to Seattle, and after that, he never made any other attempts. So he stopped answering my mom's calls. Till today, my mom will tell that story until...
Was she pissed? I mean...
She was so upset.
Yeah.
She had no control anymore,
Right.
I think there were many sleepless nights. I think the other kids probably suffered some. She was always worried about my whereabouts.
So at what point were you able to reconnect with your mom?
I want to say junior year or senior year of high school. So about 4 or 5 years had gone by.
And what's that conversation like?
Emotional.
Mm-hmm.
She thought that I somehow got lost. She didn't really know what to say. She was sorry.
By then, Hawa moved out of the apartment with her countrymen and in with the family of Jessica Boyd, one of her basketball teammates. She got word there from Jessica's mom that her own mother was looking for her. Hawa credits their reunion to a special Somalian breed of word of mouth.
Yeah, we call that sheka sheko. It's storytelling. It's gathering of people. They tell stories, and they share.
Hawa's mother had moved to Oslo, Norway. Meanwhile, Hawa had started modeling. She appeared in print campaigns for Macy's, Nordstrom, and Target.
It's now 2008.
Yeah.
At this point, you get some money in the bank, and you're an adult, and you can afford to go see your mom. And you haven't seen your mom since 1993. But one of the things that you realized, from what I understand, is that you had been missing Somali food all along. On this trip, you had this revelation.
Yeah. One of the things that happens when anybody comes home, they throw you a party. And so that was my first reintroduction to Somali food. I fell back in love with my culture and what it really means to be Somali, I'd been walking around feeling awkward, thinking, well, maybe this is just the way that I am. And then, no, come to find out, I have my own tribe of people that share the same bloodline as me that are exactly like me, I remember when I was a little girl, my friends always used to say, why do you scream when you talk? And then I went to my mom and my sisters, and I was like, oh, I get it. We don't have a bass voice.
Right.
Right.
We're talking over each other. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you have this feeling, but then you do something with it. You start to learn how to make things that connect you back to your roots.
Yeah. The more I was there, the more I realized, my mom and I are reconnecting again because we're cooking together. I'm making her tea every morning. We're waking up and I'm making angelo, which is the Somali breakfast. It's just like a thin little flatbread that you put butter and sugar and then pour tea over and eat it with your hands or however you want. But
what is it made of?
It's just flour, white flour, eggs, and water.
And what do? You make it in a pan?
Yeah, you just very thin. You just pour it, go around and around, and then it becomes really, really paper thin, almost corn tacos.
So what did your mom teach you on this trip, and how did she teach you? Would she get in there with her hands and show you things? Or
No, she would sit and bark orders at my sister Hodan and me. And my little sister Hodan is an amazing cook. So, Hodan would make elaborate dishes that my mom's like barking the orders for. More salt, more pepper. She'd say things like, Naya, which is like, girl, or, And my mom is very, very expressive and really loud. And so she'd sit in the kitchen on a very low stool and just bark orders at my sisters and I. And I really wasn't able to do a lot unsupervised. She just didn't trust it. Even my tea, I didn't put enough sugar in it. But I learned.
And at some point, you get this in your head that you're going to go into business. You're going to go into the food business, making Somali food.
In July, summer of 2014, I was in Oslo. And I took my Vitamix, being the American that I am. I was like, I'm not parting with my Vitamix for 3 months, like a whole summer. But in that came Best because she would always say, oh, it's nice that you have this blender. You could do these peppers much better than we can. So their sauces were chunkier, where mine were creamy.
What was in that version, that first version you started making with her?
So the first one I made was the tamarind and date one. And the way I remember Best was never with dates. And I didn't know if my mom was making it up or if this is something that had been passed down to her. But then later I found out that my cousins in Holland make it the same way. So it was dates, tamarind paste, tomatoes, cherry bomb peppers, and then the Somali spice, which is a combination of many spices blended. So again, cinnamon cloves. We put cinnamon in everything. Cardamom, turmeric. There's a bunch of spices in the mix. Whole cloves, black pepper. And my mom would just say, blend the peppers first. No, don't put the green pepper in that one. Put the red pepper in that one. And we just went from there. And I got better as the days went. Because you make it every day. You make it fresh every day.
Right.
And then I started to eat it like with chips and salsa, like as a salsa. And my mom hadn't seen that before. So she was like, oh, maybe it is a good snack as opposed to just having it on the side of your food.
In 2015, Hawa joined the business incubator program run by Hot Bread Kitchen, a New York City bakery that also provides startup support for food entrepreneurs from around the world. While at Hot Bread, Hawa developed her 2 sauces and honed her business strategy. She began selling her red sauce, tamarind date, and her green sauce, coconut curry cilantro, last year. How much of this is paying homage to your mother and how much of it is paying homage to your country?
I think 50-50. Mm-hmm. I'll always feel at the core of me a proud Somali, I really love where I come from. I love all that I've learned. Just the essence of being Somali for me has taken me very far, Mm-hmm. So to talk about Somalia and to have people asking questions and not in a way that is healthy, wanting to know more and not assuming everything's about piracy or famine or, bombs going off every night. And then on the other hand, my mom is not only the backbone of my family, but she's the backbone of her community. And I really want to honor her. And this, for me, not only brings the two of us close because we've got more to talk about now, but it also, I think some part of it is she feels a little forgiven, which even though I've never held anything against her for sending me to America and having this life, but I think she gets it. She's like, oh, this is my child, and she knows she's my child.
Since we talked, Hawa has expanded her business. To find out where you can buy Best, go to our website, livefrompриncestreet.com.
Now it's time for Eden Eats NYC with Eden Grinchpan.
Okay, so we're about to walk into Babuji. It's right in the heart of Alphabet City in Manhattan. It is an Indian restaurant that opened up last June, 2015. The owners are Jesse and Jennifer Singh, the most adorable married couple. They started this business in Australia and actually brought it to New York City. He is an Indian-born chef, and Jennifer is a New Yorker, and she runs the front of the house. I love this restaurant. It's a really cool, fresh take on classic Indian cooking, and the beer selection is dynamite. The room has a really cool vibe. It is not what you expect. The dishes are absolutely beautiful and colorful and bright. Jesse is really giving a new look to Indian food, and he's using spices and ingredients that are really unique, but also have that traditional sense. So let's get in there because there are some dishes on that menu that I am dying to try.
Indian cuisine is about flavors. So many different spices, so many fruits, dry fruit. Adding all those things together, then be able to taste everything. So a cardamom can easily overpower the pistachio, or cinnamon can take over everything. Clove can kill the dish. But thousands of years of practice in this cuisine, so Indian has mastered how to work with so many intense flavors.
I started thinking about this void with Indian dining in general. You've got your takeaway, and then you've got that high-end Indian restaurant that is usually very delicious, but it's just lacking in soul. I mean, eating Indian food in India is such an event. It's so lively and festive, and there's a lot of sharing. There's no pretension. There's no planned menu. It's just come in, let's share our food.
What's it like being married and running a restaurant?
We love it. We've been very successful till today. Every restaurant we open because of that. Jennifer created a brand. She creates, she designs. This is all her imagination. She picks the furniture, the color, the pattern, the painting. While I stay in the kitchen, I do my things. We have that relationship. It works perfectly.
You guys are going to start a brunch menu, which I am really excited about. Tell me the inspiration behind your brunch menu and if you have any dishes that, are definitely going to make the cut.
I mean, this has been in the works for a few years. We are really excited about this menu. We've been wanting to get it out for a long time.
Indian street
Delicious.
food, handheld sandwiches, Frankies, the burgers.
But there's no Frankies in India. This is like Indian food with the American twist.
Exactly.
And what are we making today?
Today we're going to make an authentic butter chicken Frankie.
What is butter chicken?
Butter chicken is a very northern Punjabi dish. Old traditional way, tomato, ginger, garlic, cooked slowly. So they become so creamier. Then added dairy, mostly milk.
No cream?
No cream.
There's no butter in butter chicken.
So that's the reason we call it unauthentic butter chicken. So it's a tomato, ginger, garlic, cooked for hours, then added a chicken. Then we're going to turn that dish into a sandwich with a beautiful brioche bun and going to serve with the masala fries with the dry green mango powder, crushed pomegranate seed, little chili, a little salt. So it's wow dish.
Okay, just be aware that I might not leave after I eat this dish. So I hope you're ready for another child.
I mean, I think...
And her name's Eden.
No.
Take me in,
We're good
please.
on that front.
Take me in. So are you guys ready to make some butter chicken?
I'm very. Let's go. But I need some spices and a couple ingredients.
Okay, great.
Should we go?
I know just the place.
Okay, let's do it.
So we're walking to the refrigerated section, and Jesse's just about to pick up what looks like a ginger, but it's not.
This is our turmeric.
Turmeric actually is also part of the rhizome family, which is with ginger. So it looks like ginger, but it's thinner than ginger. And when you break it open, it has a gorgeous, deep orange color in there.
Yes, just think of sweet potato. So normally in India, we use this either fresh or we will dry it and turn it into a turmeric powder.
And aside from using it in food, I know that in India they use it a lot for dyeing their clothes. It's a natural dye.
And used in a makeup. Mustard oil.
Really?
Cook mustard oil and turmeric, put it together. They make a face, they put a paste on a face, dry it out.
Is that like the Indian bronzer?
Exactly. Been used for thousands of years.
Oh, I'm going to be using that trick. I should do that on my next blog post. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it is. And another.
We learned it from Chef Jesse.
I'm going to call it the Jesse Glow.
There you go.
One of the healthiest spice you can have.
Amazing. So if we can't find fresh turmeric, is the turmeric powder just as good?
Just as good as it. Just only thing you have to look for, it has to look really yellow and buy a smallest quantity.
Yeah. Oh, really?
You don't want to buy big quantity, you can stay fresh. And the basic cooking for Indian, I would say if you want to have a basic spice collection in your kitchen, cumin powder, coriander powder, curry powder, chili powder. That's it.
Where's cardamom?
Turmeric, but that's the basic.
We're like, don't keep our favorites away from us.
You want to go to the next level, you really enjoy Southeast Indian food. You got to have a cardamom powder, you have to have fennel powder, fennel seed, garam masala.
You need to teach me about fenugreek.
My secret recipe of butter chicken is a fenugreek. Fenugreeks give your food a buttery flavor.
Oh.
Without adding ghee or butter, and it's very healthy for you.
Okay, done. Okay, so you're going to show me the tricks. To watch us cook this butter chicken Frankie and for the recipe, head to livefromprincestreet.com.
This next performer, she's a judge on the Food Network's Chopped, and she's here tonight. Please give it up for Alex Guarnaschelli.
I just want to let you know that I go to the gym now, and when I get to the gym, I'm the only person that's not thin at my gym. I belong to a very type A gym, and when I walk in, they kind of crouch down like they see a pet, all of them. The elevator opens, they're like, hey, so you're here, hi. Oh, the fat girl is here, so good. You're gonna like round us out, like diversity, you know?
Alex Guarnaschelli is one of the most popular TV food personalities in America. She was one of the first female Iron Chefs, and her restaurant Butter has been a Manhattan staple since 2003. But now she wants a new challenge in the comedy clubs of New York City. She sat down recently at Butter in Midtown with Pavia Rosati to talk about why.
So I was thinking about the overlap between comedy and food. Late nights, grueling hours.
A lot of drinking.
Pressure to hit it every single time.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You got to get the timing right.
Totally.
A comic who has bad timing, a chef who can't get the food out so that everybody's eating at the same time.
Totally.
An anonymous public that is not shy about judging what you give them.
Totally. And people have come to some of my stand-ups so far and they know me already from Chopped, or they've been to the restaurant or something like that. And that makes, in a way, it makes it even harder because they already have an idea of who you are. I am not a ramp. I am not a steak. If anything, I think what I can express in food can be expressed with words. And so that's where the comedy kind of comes in handy. I've been packing 20 plus years of cooking and not joking.
So I'm pregnant and I'm a chef and I stumble to the fridge and I'm bleary-eyed and there's nothing in the fridge except for Fruit Loops, questionable milk, and something in the freezer. Now, you throw stuff in the freezer, you're like, it's really good and I'm gonna eat it and it's gonna be amazing. And then it sits there for 5 months, you still think it's amazing when you're pregnant and you're starving. So I get in there and I have like a bite of a chocolate parfait. It actually has bite marks in it in the freezer. Do you have anything with bite marks in the freezer? Because I do. There's also like some croissants that are frozen and they smell kind of like shrimp because I also have shrimp in the freezer. But the croissants are good. I'm pregnant. They're good. So I bake them in the oven and I smell like this shrimp smell. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, these croissants are gonna be amazing. They're gonna take me right back to my years in Paris. I eat them all like an animal, like an electric chair party. I eat all these croissants. And then I go to the grocery store, kind of maybe in my bathrobe, kind of half nude, maybe weeping. Maybe I was weeping. I'm not exaggerating. That's what's sad. So I go to the grocery store and the cashier knows me now. Like we have this thing. She's like, hey, I know you're pregnant and you're here a lot and you get a lot of food. Somehow I have nothing in my fridge, so I buy things like whole watermelons every day. She's like, are you having a party again, mommy? Now, I don't know about you, but I will go to the grocery store and pretend that I'm having a party. Shop for one, make a guest list. Birthday candles, do I have the cake? There's no party. I'm talking to myself with a list like people believe me.
One of the things that you did in your stand-up act that I was listening to was talk about what you buy when you go to the grocery store.
I'm either a lethal weapon, a national treasure, or both at the same time. As soon as I enter the supermarket, it doesn't matter if I'm hungry or I've just eaten. I will shop with wild abandon in equal measure. You know, I won't make it through without getting some treats. And it started when I was a kid. I mean, my mom would always buy a couple of treats, you know, something that you ate on the way home from the store. Who, by the way, went to Dean and DeLuca on opening day.
Your mother...
And it was the first place, it was the first time I tasted balsamic vinegar. You know, my mother spent... whatever little money my parents had was spent on food, and they would only go to Balducci's and Dean and DeLuca and nowhere else. So I remember going to Dean and DeLuca on the opening day with my mom, dragged my father and me downtown, and my dad said, "You're nuts." I think she spent more money than they ever had. I mean, it was almost divorce, but what she bought was so delicious that eventually my dad calmed down. That's my first grocery store experiences. It's where I learned the example.
I want to turn to the idea of judging and performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking about when you are working as a chef, you're performing, but you're behind the scenes, so to speak. Unless chefs are in an open kitchen, people know that they're coming to your restaurant, but there's some element of it that's behind the scenes. You're then known in the public domain as a chef who is a judge, which is how people really know you. I find it interesting that what you're doing now with comedy is going front of house, so to speak, and performing and putting yourself out there for judgment. Is this something you've always wanted to do?
No. Is that weird? No, only like the past couple years I thought, well, that would be fun. But it just seems like maybe like there's something about being a chef is very athletic. Mm-hmm. It's manual labor. We don't say that often enough. I think I have like a little bit of an athlete streak. The drive, doing the same thing over and over again just to try and get better at it, having days where you're great, days where you're awful. And I think that kind of makes all the things that people find so daunting about comedy just seem like what you have to do if you want to try to achieve something. If you think about how quiet you are when you do most of your cooking, there's a lot of thinking that goes on, and maybe it doesn't get spoken. And now I would like to do something where I get to speak. It's really, I know that may sound basic, but there's been a lot of internalizing when you cook, and now I feel like I want to do some externalizing. Like when the grill guy finishes his shift, he goes over to the pastry and eats all the desserts, and the pastry chef, when he finishes his or her shift, goes over to the grill and eats all the leftover meat. You just want what you don't do and what you don't see or what you don't touch. So it just simply feels, for some reason, despite all its parallels and commonalities, it actually feels like the opposite.
What does it feel like when you're on stage doing comedy?
It's terrible. It's hideous because you're looking at every person's face. I think that neither profession is for those that really worry too much about approval. You just kind of give up and take chances. Somewhere in a sea of cynical moments, you have to have a very hopeful heart. Now understand, this is where we come back to me being on television and on Chopped. People will follow me around the grocery store to see what I'm buying. And I'm trying to figure out what they're buying. So I go to the grocery store like, hey, what do you got in your cart? Like, what do people want to eat? What's the trends? But people are really looking at what I'm buying, you know? They're like, what does a Chopped judge and an Iron Chef buy? So if I buy like Doritos and Oreos and cake and Wheels of Brie and stuff like that, which of course I am, people, I have to hide it under a really big head of broccoli, which I do all the time. I'm like, here's all the lean cuisine stuff and the cake, and then this broccoli. I fan the broccoli out. I break it, the rubber band. The guy's like, no, don't do that. It's all sustainable and organic. I'm like, I know. I invented broccoli, and I'm just hiding a bunch of shit underneath it. Leave me alone.
Alex Guarnaschelli!
This is Jay McInerney. Jim Harrison was a prolific American poet, novelist, and essayist who published, by my count, at least 39 books before he passed away on March 26, 2016, shortly after the publication of his latest volume of novellas, The Ancient Minstrel. Though his writing is often compared to Ernest Hemingway or William Faulkner, Harrison's voice has a unique blend of dark humor, hedonism, and a deep appreciation for nature. He's perhaps best known for his 1979 novella Legends of the Fall, which was later made into a movie starring Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins. I first read Legends of the Fall while I was working as a fact-checker at The New Yorker and struggling with my first novel, and I was deeply moved. As a writer and a foodie, I was particularly taken with this passage from his last book, The Ancient Minstrel. Later, he sat at his desk, wanting very much to write a poem about piglets, not a comic poem. It would have to be a private poem for his eyes only, because you need only to utter the word pig, and some people would begin chuckling in their superiority. Pigs were, of course, edible, but contemptible. He seethed in resentment in defense of pigs. How could he write a poem if he was angry? Historians said that pork fueled the Western movement. Without pigs, there would be no West Coast. Pigs would follow the wagon trains, their minds on a little corn for dinner. They would root for edible vegetables, while cattle would wander off with their eyes on greener pastures. He made a number of false starts on his pig poem, then was so exhausted he drove to the saloon in town. Poetry does this to us. You can quickly either soar or drown in depression. You can have a pretty good first line, but not a strong enough thought to tag along more lines, and sometimes in the middle, words become bored and make war on one another. Notebooks are full of these fragments, shrapnel of our intention. Life is short on conclusions, and that's why it's often a struggle to end a poem. Some are lost forever. Sometimes you walk around with versions of a poem in your head that won't come clean. You are enslaved to this language of disorder and can brood upon it for days and weeks. When the poem finally does work, your spirit soars, and you forget the difficulty like you forget pain afterward. Recently, I sat down with Jim's friend Mario Batali at his restaurant Otto in Greenwich Village to discuss Jim's writing, his appetites, and his extraordinary life.
So he had come in, and I wasn't there, and I was a fan, and they just left a book, and I said, who left this book? Who left this book for me? What, Jim Harrison was here? Yeah, some guy was in last night. He was a little loud. He was in the corner. His agent, or I think Judy Hodgson, lent me the book. And I'm like, we have to find him. Give me some information. They put us together. We wrote some handwritten letters together, and then he came back to town the next year. And we had like a 12-course, 12-wine dinner, as you would with Jim Harrison. Yeah. And we became fast friends immediately and loved each other ever since.
Would you say that Jim could outdo you as a trencherman at the table?
I don't think there's any doubt about that. No, he was like Secretariat. There was no catching Jim. He could eat a full-on dinner, then the next morning everyone's kind of tender, and Jim's like, I like the pieces of testa about as big as a cue ball. And he'd take out the head cheese that I brought him, and it was cut into cubes, and it was supposed to be sliced after that, and he would just go, look, like Skittles. Drop 3 or 4 of those back, have a glass of red wine at 10 in the morning, you're like, oh, dude.
Somebody who likes testa more than you. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's amazing. You know, Jim was infinite and always hungry and always thirsty. And it was with no apologies. He was more like, it was your moral obligation to consume a little more because you could.
Yeah, it's a terribly unfashionable sentiment now, although it seems to have made him very popular and beloved.
Right, exactly. Well, we all love someone who can.
Yeah, but I wonder if anybody will ever be able to get away with that again, to that degree of celebrating all of the pleasures of the flesh and the table the way that he did.
You know, you're going to die and you want the fullness of life. You want the total fullness of life. Even Samuel Johnson, only a fool wouldn't care what he was eating, This is something you do every day. Why not do it well? Good food just simply tastes good, as opposed to bad food, which doesn't taste good at all.
So you cooked for him the first time. When was the first time he cooked for you? And what did he cook?
I remember it was at his house outside of Sutton's Bay out by Leland. And he had a smoked leg of lamb. And I remember, because subsequently I've known Jim a long time, you'd never really see him hustle. But at one point, he had heard that someone had put the lid all the way down on the barbecue on this leg of lamb, and he sprinted outside to make sure there was enough air there that it wouldn't overcook it. And in fact, it was absolutely delicious. And he had quite a little cellar that had already been pillaged many times by both of his daughters, but also by himself. And we found some old 1974 or 75 Inglenook and Heights Martha's Vineyards, and we drank all those in like 2 days. It was a fantastic find. I don't know how you don't find stuff in your wine cellar. It wasn't much left anyway, but it was like, oh my God, look at this. We should try this. And there was a Villa Mount Eden. I remember being very impressed with that too.
Yeah.
And so he cooked that lamb, and there was like some kind of cassoulet, and there was some salad. And then I think for dessert, he made a tarte tatin.
So he was a good cook.
Oh, excellent cook. I mean, I think Jim's a great cook, provided he's given 2 assistants at all times. Like, he'll peel one potato and talk about it for 45 minutes, but you're not getting anywhere with the potatoes.
So you were the sous chef.
Yeah, I was a sous chef, and a good friend of ours, Bob Sloan, is also a sous chef. So we kind of kept the ball moving along. But he was an excellent cook and an excellent, I mean, you've read his writing on food is so tasty and tangy and lip-smacking. Reading Jim talk about food, particularly in Italy, is like eating cotechino. You know, it leaves that little residue on your lips. You're like, it's a little sticky. There's a little nutmeg in there. And every time you smack your lips, you get one more little nuance. It's the same when reading his food essays.
First time I read Raw and the Cooked, it seemed to me, again, a throwback.
Right.
In this case, to A.J. Liebling.
Right, exactly.
Who was the last writer I ever encountered who really celebrated excess, almost, and more, and fattier, and
richer,
and bigger, and
harder to find.
I think this is one of the amazing things about Jim and his writing, was his unashamed celebration of his cravings and the massiveness of his appetite.
Right. I think for me, Jim captured appetite in a way that almost no one else could. But also, when you're reading his book, what you really get is the silence of nature. Like the way he describes the way a bird sounds, that he can identify on one little noise while he's sitting out there fishing somewhere in a story, or one of his characters is. The silence is something he captures so beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. We've been talking about the garrulous and gregarious Jim, but he also was a man of the woods.
I would go out to his house in either Patagonia or Livingston, and we would hunt for 2 or 3 days in a row. And just walking the fields with him and his calm quietness when we were heading toward a dog that was on a point was just something remarkable and beautiful about him. We once went fishing in the Yellowstone River, which was kind of out behind his house. And I remember we cast for about half hour, we didn't catch a thing, and then he caught 2 nice-sized cutthroats. And out of nowhere, I caught like a 4-pound brown trout. And it was just like, see, I bring good luck, don't I? I'm like, yes, you do, man. We're in your boat. He looked at that fish for 3 or 4 minutes before we finally released it. And he was just like, this is one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see. His true enthusiasm lied in days of fishing and in days of hunting and walking quietly down, a little path with his dogs. His dogs were everything for him. So, when they were around, it was just like so much happiness. I mean, pretty fantastic. Very different from my world. I mean, when I went into his world, it was his world and I was just a participant. And just looking at him with his Elmer Fudd clothes on is something that brings a laugh to my heart every time I think about him. But I think above all, he'll be remembered, because everyone forgets the Bacchanalian Fest eventually. They'll remember the menus, but I think his writing will stand up for a long, long time, because it is such a unique and beautiful voice, and his poetry, even in regular prose, was something so mimicable and yet so hard to grab a hold of it.
I've been inordinately productive in the last 5 or 6 years, and I think it was boiling down your life. Dogen, 14th century Zen philosophers, talked about cooking down your life. You cook down your life, and then the sauce is just right so you can let go.
Now it's time for our Madeleine moment, inspired by the French author Marcel Proust and a passage from his novel in which a character dips a cookie into his tea and is transported back to his childhood.
Hi, I'm Mario Batali, and this is my Madeleine moment. There is nothing that drives me crazy like the smell of boiling pasta water. My grandma who was thought of as mostly the strangest woman that ever came into our largely Norwegian neighborhood in Seattle, used to make a dish that frightened everybody. It was her calf's brain and Swiss chard ravioli served with an oxtail ragu. Now, you would say this to kids who categorically, across all of their life, bought their sausage at a grocery store, which we didn't even know you could do. But she braised the oxtails for about 4.5 hours in a light red tomato sauce. The filling was Swiss chard, rabbit, calf's brains, a little bit of potatoes, Parmesan, and nutmeg. And you got 8. 8 is all you got. Why only 8, Grandma? Because there's still dinner. Perplexing. We got 8, you got 2 or 3 of the little hubcaps of the oxtail sauce. There is nothing that drives me crazy like the smell of boiling pasta water, knowing that Grandma's raviolis were coming down the pipe.
That's it for this month on Prince Street.
Thanks for coming.
Come back next month when we'll be talking about breaking rules.
If I were a food, I would be Smarties because I'm smart. I would be broccoli because everybody hates it and nobody would eat me.
Prince Street is produced by Elizabeth Robinson, Julian Plante, Andrew Chugg, Fanny Cohen, Barry Finkel, Emily Rubin, Zach Dinerstein, and executive produced by Charles Finch, with special help from Whitney Donaldson and Ava Robinson. Theme music by Dave Brubeck. And I'm your host, Howie Kahn.
I think he would be a jelly bean because he's sweet and on the outside and sweet on the inside too. And he's colorful.
I would be a pickle because everybody thinks they're gross.
Prince Street is brought to you by Dean & DeLuca, purveyors of the finest food since 1977. With over 40 stores around the world, Dean & DeLuca curates the best ingredients for life.